Oh, hey there. Funny seeing you here in these weird shaped boxes we find ourselves in nowadays. My name is John Paul Rhinemiller. I'm an assistant animation director at Vicarious Visions Blizzard. I'm also an instructor at AnimSchool. Been here for quite some time now, teaching over at the games courses. I teach advanced game animation where students will learn about complex body mechanics and cinematics. We also put a good focus on soft skills to help prepare students when they leave these courses to have some of the confidence and those skills to help get them to jump right into this industry. So have a look. Take a look at the games courses at AnimSchool, and hopefully I'll see you there. Maybe in person, not in these boxes. It's an interesting question because I don't know that I always knew that I wanted to be an animator. I always knew that I had some semblance of like a love for art. Comic books early on was my go-to, going down to the store with my dad and picking up comic books off the rack and just like enjoying the art. I didn't even care what the story was really. It was just about the art. And so I would draw, try to copy as much and do a lot of line art. Never really had any formal training in art and such. And I went to a technical high school and took computer assisted drafting. And the aspect of computers together with the art, because back then when I was in high school, I was doing both manual drawing on board still, which was scratching my itch to draw and be somewhat creative, even though it was in like a structure, and then kind of going to the computer and learning CAD and mechanical drafting and like machine parts, and kind of putting those two together. It always still kind of bored me and never like really scratched that creative itch. And so I went to community college after that and just happened to take an elective in this small town where, this instructor had moved from California and they set up like a satellite studio in the next town over, and he was working on film, and he was like, oh, I'm going to teach an elective in animation. So we went through the entire process. We made like sculpts, and then we modeled them and rigged them, and kind of finally went into the animation aspect. But from that point, the two of the art side and the technical side kind of came together. And that for me was like, oh my God, I can do this. So like, is there jobs in this? Like, who's doing this? What is this all about? And my community college was so in the dark. They were like, well, if you find out anything, let us know. Like, we'd love to see where this path can kind of take students. And so it was really about me trying to find what that looked like for me. Finally kind of ended up in art school, took a couple online courses, and made my way into film. So I think I always had the film itch, just like a lot of students do. They like to get it in their head that like film is the thing that we got to do. If I don't reach film, I am not a success story, right? Like, it's like that is the pinnacle of animation sometimes, and that's the way it feels sometimes, right? And so that's, in a lot of brick and mortar schools, a lot of schools back in the day, all of their programs were set up like that because the game industry was this weird insular thing, so it was like, a couple people you knew got a job in games, but you didn't really talk about that all the time. And nobody was really working on game cycles at college. It was all about how you could get into film. And so there wasn't a lot of exposure, not a lot of game studios coming. If they were coming, they weren't promoted well, those kind of things. So I gravitated towards that film side of it and worked my way as hard as I could to get in, was in for a few years. And it wasn't until, honestly, my wife was looking to go back to college, and we were in LA at the time, and I started looking around at different jobs, and I came across Vicarious Visions out in New York. I was from the Northeast. It kind of felt like, all right, let's go back for 2 or 3 years while she gets her degree, and then I'll jump back into film. Like, that's the plan, because games is kind of like a stepping stone. That's what kind of I looked at it as, like, right, I'm going to go back to film. And I got there and I interviewed, and I was interviewing at a bunch of places, a couple more film places as well, during that time period. And the environment through the interview process was so different. It was like this breath of fresh air where I got to the studio. It was like this full 8 hours. They flew me out there and it was like, I got to meet people from all different disciplines, not just interview with animators. And they all wanted to know how I was going to collaborate with them. And I felt like that experience was so different for me than going and interviewing with just a team of animators and animation supervisor and being like, this is it. This is what you're focusing on. So I was like, wow, that was really different. And so they ended up giving me an offer and I took it, came out here. The whole time, again, like 1 foot out the door, like I'm going back to film, but I'm gonna, I'll work my ass off. And it just, the opportunities there, smaller teams, the ability to collaborate with different minded people like engineers, which they worked in film studios. I never saw them. I didn't get to collaborate on large like features that would ship in a game with them. So like they're sitting next to me and I'm solving problems with them. And it was really just like a different mindset to try to get quality into a game engine. Like over the 3 years that I was there, I learned a lot about being an artist as well, and not just an animator. I sharpened my skills as an animator, but I grew as a game developer and I grew as an artist. And it provided this opportunity for growth that I don't know that I would have gotten in film because it is so specialized. Sometimes there is very little room for you to get outside and lift your head up and see what's happening over there. But in games, they encourage that. They push you to be follow like your passion and what it is that you kind of want to go after. So like that always kind of stuck with me. Even when I shipped the project, I was like, okay, maybe I'll look, but I was like, wow, the next project looks really great. And the studio's been really good to me and I've learned so much and I've grown so much. And so why don't I just hop on to the next project? And before you know it, I've been here 10 years. And I'm not ever going back to film, but I'm a game developer now. The teams are smaller. So I'm, even going through the hiring process right now, when I'm interviewing somebody, I'm looking how their voice is going to impact my team. Because it could be 6 animators on a team, let's say a cinematics team, gameplay has 5, whatever, depending on the scale of the studio. When I was at Rhythm and Hues, we had 90 animators, 90, on a short project that I was on for 4 to 6 months. And so my personality is big. I tried to get to know everybody, but like you're really getting to know them and you have to work together to solve problems. Because as an animator, ultimately, you want that quality out there. You want the community to appreciate the quality of animation that you're doing. So if there's technical issues, you have to work together to solve them so the rest of the team can also be proud of what we end up shipping. So there, you are at the ground floor. You're seeing these things and you can be involved as much or as little sometimes as you want to be. If you want to be heads down and you want to focus on just being a good animator, there's room for that. If you want to solve technical problems and you want to work and collaborate outside of that, there's also room for that. So we expect animators on our teams to have a little bit more of an impact and a voice. We really want their voice to shine through because your perspective is very important to help round out our team, to help give us different pieces that all come together to help us ship a good product. We like to, at the end of a project, if you're say on the cinematic team and you have been itching to do some gameplay, there's no reason why you cannot transfer over and do gameplay animation for the next project or a small bit of it or something like that. So that's the other thing. And a lot of introverts are in our industry, just in general. A lot of people that are not necessarily comfortable collaborating or talking. And I think games gives you a really safe place and a really a much more tight-knit group of individuals for you to try to have a voice and try to be have some impact with your ideas, which may get lost in film sometimes if you are already the type of person that likes to kind of stay to themselves a little bit more. And as an animator, you are thinking of ways to engage somebody in that experience. And when you're in film, you like there's engaging moments in the story that maybe if you're lucky to animate those moments, like, of course, those things are unforgettable, right? But like the entire development, almost, you are trying to do that in small ways and in large ways. Every time that you touch something in there, it goes to the larger experience that somebody is going to have when they pick it up and play through it. So, and you're on the ground floor of that. The teams are smaller, so you are going to be a part of that. Like, whether you realize it when you first get in the door or not, you are going to be a part of it. And it allows you to appreciate the art form and how animation fits into the overall perspective of art in general. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I know plenty that have done it. I know some animators that we've hired in our game, even from AnimSchool, are now in film. They spent three years at VV, and they're animating in film right now. So the reality is that the styles can be different. You're still going to have to cater to one thing or the other on your demo reel at the end of the day, right? If all of your gameplay stuff, if you just have been a gameplay animator and you want to get into film, you're going to have to still put some work into performance-based material, right? And vice versa. If you're coming onto a cinematics team and you only have body mechanics work, you may need to still do a little bit of performance work. They're going to maybe want to see that. And coming from film, it's not a one-to-one transfer because it is a game engine. There's a technical aspect to that. So there's a learning curve immediately when you get in the door that, as a studio, we need to be prepared to say, like, hey, this animator has 10 years experience as an animator, not as a game developer, right? And so that's okay. It's not a blocker, because ultimately we want people that are going to be invested in our studios. But I think that that line between animation quality is the thing that's getting closer and closer together. And so when you see game development reels or game animator reels, and the quality bar is just as good as what you're seeing in film, they have the hard skills. They have the skill set to actually help a team. It just may be in different ways, right? So some things transfer, absolutely, but at the end of the day, you still will have to kind of look towards what studio you want to go to, whether it be in film or be in games, and kind of cater to that. We've been doing some hiring from Blue Sky vets, and a lot of them don't have a video game experience, and that's okay. But you know what? They're gamers. They're passionate about gaming, and we're okay with bringing them in, helping them level up our teams in animation quality, and them learning game development as they go. Completely okay with that. Absolutely, absolutely. So I think game development is a process that you have to see in real time, and there's a responsiveness to that. There's also player feedback and community feedback when it gets into the game, right? Cinematics sometimes can be isolated if you do just large, full-scale movies, right? It is much more like a film pipeline ultimately. And there's a little bit less of that give and take in there. But when it comes to game animators in general, it's not just about your animations. You have to get it into the game, and then you have to see the responsiveness of the controller or of the PC. And so when you put it in a play test and there's a community of 20 people playing your game, they're immediately just talking. They're talking about how responsive it is, how it feels, what their experience is. And you as an animator then has to interpret that, work with designers, because there's scripting involved, there's some level of code involved to get it into the engine, to make sure that that responsiveness not only looks good from an animation and a visual perspective, but also that feeling plays well with the community and plays well with the gamer that's going to pick it up and be like, well, this guy isn't turning fast enough. I can't get over here fast enough, and I can't look down this way fast enough. So there's a level of responsiveness that has to go back and forth with the game itself, and not just about your animation and how that looks on screen. So when you understand game development and how games get made, you can start to craft and tailor your animations from your early stages a little bit differently. Your approach may be slightly different than how you would approach just a shot that's going up on a screen that's like a single case scenario, like a one-off animation. These are things that are going to be tested and have input from so many different avenues. And when you understand how it all comes together in game development, that right there is a big aspect of thinking more along the lines of a game developer. The way that the industry is going in games in general, and a lot of my friends at multiple studios, we all talk about and have shifted mindset to become a game developer. I was an animator when I started, but I'm a game developer first now because I know how to make games. I know what animation systems it takes to make animation run well in games, right? And then I'm an animator, right? I have to understand game development in order to make animation shine, and also help the team get it to shine and get all the resources that I need and the support that I need to help these animators, make sure that their animations are shining in the games that we make and to the community that's playing them. In setting the courses up the way that they have in the games courses here, we bring you through all aspects of what is currently out there in the industry. So you touch on a little bit of everything, and you touch on a little bit of engine experience. So you start to understand what game development means because we talk about it, we touch on it. You get your animations in engine. So you see that responsiveness with your animations in the controller, like you're doing that while you're in class. So you start to get a base level foundation of what that could look like and how to think like a game developer and an animator in this industry. In the first courses, you're really getting a sense of what gameplay animation is. So there's a lot of exercises and there's a lot of iteration really quickly. And so we want you to feel like what that pace is like. So you have a lot of different exercises and they're really short time frames because, again, in games, especially as a gameplay animator, you could be working on multiple aspects of one character, whether that's their jump, whether that's their attack, whether that's their locomotion. So all of those things have to come together, but you have to build those together, get them in so they all fit together and you can see how that plays in the engine. So the pacing is pretty quick. Once you get into class 2, there's a focus on creature animation and motion capture, right? Which that is then introduced. The pacing is still pretty quick, but it gets a little bit more technical. By the time you get to my course, there's 2 exercises, but it's very deceiving, right? And so we bring that level up to character interaction, which is much more of a complex type of animation than what you've been doing in the previous courses. You have to do a lot of planning. You have to look for a good reference, and you have to think about really solid body mechanics. And then we talk about cameras, we work you up to it, and then you plan out an actual sequence, 1 to 3 shots, right? And it kind of gives you the range of everything that you may encounter kind of through the game animator lens a little bit, right? The biggest thing you'll learn through this is the amount of iteration and feedback that it takes and the fast pace of that. You need that iteration and feedback. The things that I focus on a lot for me, and the things that I see in student reels, and I try to harp on, especially when I'm looking to hire, whether it's internships or new junior animators coming on, is timing, spacing, and weight. And I think they're all related to that foundation. If I look at a reel and I can see that these things are off and these foundations are not there yet and they're not solid, it's hard for me to then see the potential of the animator kind of moving forward. If they have a good solid base from there, everything can be built off of that. Because timing and spacing relates to weight. And so when you can show the weight of a character through different sizes and different perspectives, then timing and spacing is going to be your friend on how to do a lot of that. And I think I harp on it a lot in the last class because I think if you see that those are not there, those foundations are not there in a student's reel, it's going to show really quickly in that student's work. You could have even a great performance, but the underlying foundation of weight is not there. And so that's the first thing that I'm going to see rather than the good performance that you actually came up with. Absolutely. Somebody that's really just kind of starting in animation, I mean, they may have a theater background. You never know what their background is. So their choices may be better than what I could come up with as, if I'm talking about performance. But the reality is they have to be able to put that together in terms of their weight. And timing and spacing is a big part of that. And so when you see that all come together, you can start to see it click for them. You can start to see that they're starting to really understand it. And all I need is that, even if it's just one piece, all I need is like, oh man, what they did in that transition there, it's really helping sell that weight of that character. And I can see the potential in it. And as long as I can see the potential, especially in an intern or a junior animator coming on, I know that they're already at a certain point in their understanding of the fundamentals of animation that we can build off of that. And when I hire a junior, I'm expecting that they come in needing to be mentored, and that's what we're supposed to do as industry vets coming in. We want fresh ideas and different perspectives coming in of junior animators. That's partly why you bring them on, because you have people that have been there for 10 years or 5 years, but we also want people with new ideas and fresh takes and fresh perspectives on animation. So all I need to do is see that slight potential, and it's okay. We have plenty of animators that can help guide them and mentor them along the process. Because I've done both. I've done with live myself, taking classes. I've done live, and I've done pre-recorded stuff, but the interaction that I have with the students individually, and drawing over and being able to explain what's in my brain about animation, and kind of interpret that for them, on what's actually on the page and what they're doing in terms of their animation skill set and what I'm seeing in terms of their critique. They can ask me questions real time while we're going back and forth, and we jam just like we would at a studio. If we're in dailies at a studio, you're going to have a group of animators in a room with the supervisor, and we're going to talk back and forth. If you don't understand it, you just say you don't understand it, and we continue to hammer on it until it kind of clicks there. So that's one of the big differences that we're seeing in real time. It's not just about drawing up. We'll open up the files. We'll kind of show them individually what that note actually means. And I'll do the note, show it to them, and then let them go back and do it in their own file, and interpret it the way that their brain is actually going to make sense of it. That's a big part of it, is because you can listen to something, you can read something, but are you getting clarity in order to interpret the way that you're going to see animation? Everybody is slightly different and understands it slightly different, and will interpret it differently. The other side of it is, so that's it for like the hard skills and the one-on-one interactions, but we talk about the industry as a whole. You'll never get some of the just discussions that we have for the first 5 to 10 minutes are about the industry and about how you can advance in your career, how you can get better at an interview. So there's so much that I'm trying to help give these students in an hour and a half to 2 hours or over 11 weeks, that I never feel like I have enough time of 10 years experience to say like, hey, these are the things to do. But we try to inject as much of the other stuff that's going to get you a job. It's not just about like your reel is going to be that 70% that's going to make that splash and going to get you the interview. But if you go into that interview or you go into the studio and you are not prepared for that, it could be the next person that's actually prepared for it or that interview better. So we really try to inject a whole much more about the animation industry and how to succeed and how to get in, rather than just on your skill set. There's always going to be time for the skill set, and you're going to continue to grow and get feedback on there. But how often do you have the opportunity to have somebody that has 20 years experience like Jarrod and has been to multiple studios and interviewed, to ask him questions about like, how does the interview process go? What are they looking for? Do you know anybody at the studio? How do I tailor my reel to it? Those kind of things are just gold that never actually gets seen in the curriculum or on a video. I say this a lot when I go and I visit a lot of colleges. I obviously have a lot of students through AnimSchool. I'm really involved with recruiting at Vicarious Vision with Activision. And so the biggest thing, I try to instill is that everybody's journey is going to be different. Everybody's timeline is going to be different. We talked a little bit earlier about like some of these foundations clicking and people being able to interpret them. That happens differently on a different timeline for everybody. So if somebody may land a job immediately out of school, and you know, somebody, it may take them 6 months or a year, but that's the timeline, that's their journey, that's what it takes. And sometimes you have to continue on that journey and continue to find that passion in order to make it happen. If you continue down that road, you continue to be passionate about it and put your all in it, you'll get into the industry. You will. But those periods separate the people that maybe lose that passion and find that passion somewhere else as they go along, and say a year and they're trying to get in the animation industry, but they find something else that they really love, and it takes them on a different journey. But if you are committed to this and you stay passionate, your time will come, your journey will come. It just takes time for everybody to kind of get there. I also think AnimSchool does a great job of focusing on our paths and on our skill sets. Not all schools do. So I would say, you know, you need to focus really early on what it is that you want to do. If you want to be a character modeler, if you want to be a rigger, if you want to be an animator, make sure that that is your mindset and you do everything in your power while you are in school to focus on that one thing. There's plenty of time for you to be as an artist or to learn character art or rigging afterwards. But if you want to get that job, it is very competitive and you need to focus as quickly and as early as possible, you know, in your studies. Right. Well, a lot of stigma is around, hey, I have to be a gamer, I have to love games to go into the game track or to go into the animation or into the gaming industry. And that is not true. I was a casual gamer growing up. I played games and I kind of liked them, but I wasn't this hardcore gamer that, you know, knew from day one that that's what I wanted to do and that's what I spent all my days doing. So there's a misconception that that is what you have to be to get into this industry, and it's just not true. There's a love of animation in this industry, just like there is in film, just like there is out there. And so the thing that AnimSchool has done is set up tracks that will get you prepared to understand multiple facets of being a game animator, whether that be cinematics, whether that be in motion capture, whether that be a gameplay animator. It gives you a really good foundation of not just that, but also touching an engine for the first time. Many students may have not done that. And getting your stuff into an engine like Unreal and being able to present that on your demo reel. So I think that's a huge part of it. If you want to see that responsiveness of something, if you want to see where this industry is going and have a different perspective on how animation can be a part of a community and touch people in different ways, or have a different experience, right? Games are an experience, and there's so much new technology out there that allows the individual to interact with their community and the people that are playing their games, that I think, you know, games are still in their infancy as an art. And I think AnimSchool does a great job of kind of capturing that base foundation. So when you get at a studio, you're not completely lost. You know, I hired 2 animators out of my class, you know, a few semesters ago. And they came in and we were using Unreal. So they were able to hop right in and they were comfortable from day one. They were comfortable as junior animators with no industry experience. And they're hopping on and doing a AAA title. You know, that's a lot of pressure in itself, but like they were also comfortable doing it. They learned, they still had stuff to learn, but they had a good foundation in order to start that process and actually come in with a bit of confidence. Years, two games I will say have affected me in 2 different ways. One is Last of Us 2, and that story, I mean, and it hit during a pandemic, and I was playing it like at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was just, I was up in like, you know, at 11 playing it till like 1 in the morning, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I can't go to bed. I can't go to bed now. And so it felt like an episodic, you know, HBO series that I could not wait to pick it back up and see what was going on. And I was interacting with it. I was actually in there. So there was moments that were really tense, and I'm like gripping the controller, like I can't even, like I'm holding my breath, and like I can't remember the last time I played a game like that. You know, and with technology getting really good and the amount of time and effort that those devs put into that game, like it was just a really beautiful immersion of a story with an experience altogether, from beginning to end. There's really not a ton of lag time in there where I was like, all right, can I just get through this? It was like from beginning to end, I really felt engaged the entire time. And so that one has stuck with me, you know, and it will for a while. I bring that up quite frequently. The other one is Spider-Man. And I think partly because it's the first one that my son, you know, I've started to kind of slowly age him into games and kind of keeping it as PC as possible for as long as possible. But that was the first one that like I opened it up and he saw me playing it. And for like, I would say 3 to 4 months, I just let him swing around the city. And that like mechanic, that one mechanic was so enjoyable, not only to do, to learn about, to watch, even just to watch my son do it, that they did such an amazing job of the experience of swinging through New York, that it was great. So I just let him do that. And then finally we started to get into the game together and we 100%ed it. I can't even tell you the last time I 100%ed the game, like all the missions, all the quests, everything. So like, you know, that is the first real experience that I will remember having. I mean, my son has played some of the games that I've made, which I'm super proud of, with Tony Hawk and Crash Bandicoot, because they're PC games and I feel like they're really appropriate for the age of my son. And so I've gotten to experience that, and that's been special. But this was the first time where like we were in it together, you know, for the journey. So those two games I think are the two that have stuck with me. And the thing is, so I'll tell you one other quick story. When we were working on Destiny and we made the raid for Warminds, there was a party at the studio, and you can go on Twitter and look it up on the Vicarious Visions site back, you know, a few years ago. And we had a party when the raid launched, and people were at the studio in that room, jumbled together for like 8 hours, watching people stream it and play it until the world's first got through it. And the roar that you heard in that room when people, and the excitement of people, that experience is really hard to replicate in real life. It's really hard to, like, maybe in a theater, if you worked on one shot and it gets this crazy applause and people are going nuts, you will feel something like that. But like that whole experience was 8 hours of people on the edge of their seat, like waiting, and like all these people that were involved and came together to make that experience just had a connection with so many people in the world from all these other different places that we didn't even know. And to see the pure joy on all the developers' faces, all my colleagues, when it was like a labor of love that had just come out and people experienced it for the first time, that we had been so hard at work for so long, that like just to watch people experience it and get joy of it and have that experience was just, it's something I'll never forget. And that's the thing with technology nowadays, and with Twitch and streamers, and like they're playing the games, they're streaming our experiences. They're streaming the experiences that we've been having under the cover of darkness for, you know, 3 to 5 years of people screaming in the office and going like, "Oh my God, did you play?" Like, you know, like, and like now we're seeing the community also enjoy it, and it can be so heartfelt and so rewarding when they feel the same way as a developer does, because ultimately the developer loves the product, the animator, the artist loves the product that we're putting out there, and we just hope that the community loves it like we did, and like we have for the last 4 years working on it. As we continue to develop more young talent and more young gamers, we've seen some good growth and the diversity of like the hires that we're getting out of school. We definitely need more diversity in games in general, but we also need more females in there. I think the thing that this offers is different perspectives. We need those different perspectives in our industry to help create great ideas and good experiences that everybody can enjoy and that represents everybody. Those perspectives is what's going to help us continue to develop games that people want to play in the future. And I think the gaming industry as a whole over the course of the last 5 years has done a better job of being more self-aware. We have a long way to go. And I think that young gamers, young female gamers can help be a part of that change and that drive and that push forward to continue to evolve our industry. Because I'm literally hiring senior cinematic animators right now. And like over the course of the last month, 2 months, I've had one female applicant, one. And it's like, I know they're out there. I know that they're there, but I just, you know, the ratio is just still off. And we're seeing so much more when we go and visit colleges of female game developers, female artists and animators in general. We're seeing so much more of that, but we just need to continue to advocate for it and push for it, because it offers a completely different perspective and dynamic to our teams and everything. And it makes us better. That diversity, that inclusion, and those ideas just make our teams better, make our games better.